Namo Furobosa, Namo Furobosa, Namo Furobosa.
So, welcome everyone to this evening's celebration of the Liturgy of the Day. My name is Osho Brad, one of the priests with the Dragonfly Sangha. I'm happy to be with you here this evening. So let us start by sharing the peace. May all beings awaken to that peace which is our true home. Let us take refuge. I take refuge in the ground of being within which I live and move and breathe. Let us make the accord. I take sanctuary in the heart of being, accepting all of my delusions in thought, word, or deed, born of ignorance, hatred, and greed. Let us give thanks. I give thanks for all beings, awakening to the interbeing of all nature. May my heart be open and my mind clear. May all be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and may all come to know that peace which is beyond all understanding. Since it is the practice of enlightenment, that practice has no beginning. And since it is enlightenment within the practice, that realization has no end. So, I am a big fan of horror movies. And that's not what this Dharma talk is about. But I have considered maybe giving some Dharma talks that tie, teachings and practices into popular horror movies, but not tonight. But I'm a big fan of horror movies, and every October I watch a lot of them. And I try to do a 31 for 31, but it's technically a 31 for 65 because I need to start in September, maybe even late August, because there's no way I have enough time to watch a movie every day in the month of October. But I watch a lot of newer horror films. I love 80s horror films because that's when I grew up, and there's an aspect of conquering the fears that I had when I was a little kid with some of those movies. But every year I look for new horror movies, and I love that there are decades that I can go back to and watch older stuff, But I had this thought the other day, and I don't know what brought this into my mind. Maybe I was doing the dishes and it's just a time of contemplation. But I had a thought. It's basically, one day I won't be here. I'll die. I won't be here. And they're going to make all these amazing horror movies, and I'm never going to get to watch them. And it hit me. It really it impacted me. It was like I had this sudden, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. The sudden, oh my goodness. There's going to come a time where these amazing films will be made and I won't be there to watch them. Me, this big consumer of horror movies. And I thought about other hobbies of mine. There are going to be other just, I love movies in general. There'll be great films released that I'll never see. Music that I'll never listen to, books published, games developed. I'm going to miss out one day. I'm very fortunate, as a consumer with the internet, you can find pretty much everything. And that's great. But that won't always be the case. And for some reason, that thought really stuck with me. And I needed to kind of sit with it for a while. Because, I think anyone who has studied Buddhism, conceptually that we're all impermanent. And beyond conception, we know that all things are impermanent. We see that. And we all know, again, conceptually, that we're all going to die. Many of us have experienced deaths of people very close to us. But for some reason, this particular way of thinking, hit differently for me. So tonight I wanted to talk about something in Buddhism called the 5 Remembrances. And, because these remembrances or these teachings are related to this idea of recognizing that we won't always be here. And I think that that's a good thing to remember. As grim as maybe we sometimes feel it is, as much as we don't want to think about it, it's a useful part of our practice. And these are 5 statements that the Buddha asked us to reflect on regarding the fact that life is temporary. And these come from a sutra called the Upajitana Sutra, or the Subjects of Contemplation, as it's often translated, sutra. And there are 5 of these remembrances. And they are, I am sure to become old. I cannot avoid aging. I am sure to become ill. I cannot avoid illness. I am sure to die. I cannot avoid death. I must be separated and parted from all that is dear and beloved to me. And the 5th one is, I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions. Actions are the womb from which I have sprung. Actions are my relations. Actions are my protection. Whatever actions I do, good or bad, of these I shall become an heir. Now, the goal of these remembrances, like I said, not to bum us out. Remember, Buddhism is not pessimistic. They're intended to help free us from attachments that can trip us up and make us make foolish or harmful choices, as sometimes being attached to something can do. And those of you familiar with the story of the Buddha may recognize that the first 3 of those remembrances are exactly what the Buddha encountered that made him pursue awakening. It made him leave his family's palace and pursue that, sense of understanding. The story of the Buddha was confined as a young prince to the family's palace, shielded from everything unpleasant because his father was given a prophecy that he'd become a great spiritual leader, a great ruler, and his father, a king, of course, wanted his son to be a great ruler. So it was like, I'm going to shield him from everything unpleasant. So spent all his time inside the palace. Whenever he went outside, everyone was very careful to make sure all the beautiful people were up front. No, gross or nasty things that the young prince Gautama, Siddhartha, would see. But he took a few trips outside the palace with his charioteer, Channa. And on these trips, he saw an old man, a sick man, and a corpse. And he asked his charioteer, Chana, like, does this happen to everyone? Will this happen to me? And Chana said, yeah, we're all subject to old age and illness and death. And so the Buddha, went forth in search of a end of suffering. Maybe the Buddha saw a great horror movie on the shelf and was like, are they going to make horror movies after I'm dead? And worried about it. But so the first three remembrances are around aging, around becoming ill, and around dying. And the fourth and fifth, the fourth one sort of combines those into this understanding that also happens to everything we hold dear. And the fifth one is about our actions and how they both follow and precede us wherever we go. So, what are we to make of these remembrances? Because these aren't teachings in the same way that, nirvana or the Pure Lands or the Three Seals or the Eightfold Path, right? That these are teachings. These are just 5 truths. The Buddha encouraged everyone, monks and lay practitioners, to reflect on these because they're true. They're impartial. They apply to you whether you're a Buddhist or a Christian or a Muslim or an atheist. These are true. And when we recognize that these things are true, really recognize them, and maybe it's as mundane a thought as the one that I had the other day in my kitchen, or maybe it is because something very big happened, a very big demonstration of the impermanence and intrinsic emptiness, lack of permanence of all things. When we recognize that, things become very precious to us. I remember after my wife passed away years ago, I'd be going through papers and, you recognize a loved one's handwriting is very important to you. And I would see, any scrap of paper that she wrote on, a little reminder to herself or to me, even just in a cookbook, wrote down the date that she made a certain thing, like, we really liked this or something like that. When she was alive, that was everywhere. I could count on there being tons of little messages and notes and more of her handwriting around the world. But after she died and I saw that, just a little scrap of paper with her handwriting on it, became very precious to me. It was very special because I recognized that I wouldn't get any more of those. Those were incredibly finite. And the goal, even in a situation like that, isn't to cling to those things. I mean, certainly they're important to me, and I've kept them. But it's to understand that the people we love, the things that we love, they're not here forever. And so we should never take them for granted. And so we recognize that nothing is permanent. We recognize that we're impermanent. Every day is in some way special. We leave that little handwritten inscription on a day. We only get so many of those. And maybe that acknowledgement, that remembrance of the fact that, I'm going to get older. I'm inevitably going to get sick. May not be what kills me, but I'll be ill. Someday I'll die. Those remembrances, maybe make us less prone to complain so much or be cranky about small things. Maybe the bad day that I'm having isn't all that bad, right? And we recognize that our loved ones are impermanent. This applies to them as well. From the fourth remembrance, I must be separated and parted from all that is dear and beloved to me. And so we love our loved ones more. We recognize what they really mean to us. And even more mundane things. Because the fourth remembrance doesn't just say, people, I must be separated and parted from all that is dear to me, including possessions, all my books behind me, our hobbies and routines, our favorite travel spots, our rituals and traditions. All of these things I must be separated from someday. And so they're special. We recognize that, maybe the people who we don't like or don't know are impermanent. They're in the same boat as us, right? All of their loved ones are impermanent. Maybe someone that they love is aging, or is fighting an illness, or has recently died. And hopefully that acknowledgement makes us feel compassion towards them, because we're all connected by these truths, regardless of what else we hold to be true. The fifth remembrance is a little different. It's focused on our accountability. I am the owner of my actions, heir of my actions. Actions are the womb from which I have sprung. Actions are my relations. Actions are my protection. Whatever actions I do, good or bad, of these I shall become the heir. And that's H-I-E-R. H-E-I-R. Goodness, I can't spell. The heir. So it has a few more parts than the other four remembrances. So let's break it apart a little bit. I am the owner of my actions. Essentially, whatever I do, I need to take responsibility for. I can't blame it on anyone else. I'm the owner. I did it. It was me. Right? Heir of my actions. What does an heir do? An heir inherits. Right? I inherit from my actions. Actions that I've taken bequeath certain benefits or burdens on me. I can't escape that. Actions have consequences, and I inherit those. I am an heir to my actions. Actions are the womb from which I have sprung. The people who raise us, our parents, the people we're born from, we often carry on traditions, right? Having been born from the womb of our actions, we carry on the traditions of those actions. We repeat them again and again, out of habit. But we need to assess those actions and consequences to make sure that our intentions are good and that we're not causing harm. Actions are my relations, right? Like any relations, the relatives, they move away, sometimes very far away. And the consequences of our actions can travel for miles and miles and years. We can't always keep track of them. But wholesome actions can be like a friendly family reunion, right? So actions are my relations. Actions are my protection, this remembrance says. When we act skillfully, we're above reproach. We don't have to worry, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Was that the right thing? Should I have done that? Because acting unskillfully can strip away protection, can make our life more difficult. And lastly, whatever actions I do, good or bad, of these I shall become the heir. So my actions are my children, so to speak, right? They carry my name with them. People sometimes look at children and think, well, who raised them to do that? So this fifth remembrance lays out all the ways that we're connected to our actions and reminds us that our attitude to the first four, the impermanence of ourselves and of our loved ones, of our own youth, of our health and of our life, whether we cling from a place of ignorance or appreciate from a place of wisdom, that attitude creates our actions, which we wholly own, which we inherit, which we are sprung forth from. So to connect these remembrances back to my very mundane worry about all the horror movies I'm not going to see someday because I won't be here, all the Dharma talks I may not give because I'm not here, I could let that bug me. I could let that put me into a panic spiral where I need to watch every single movie right now, right? Everyone ever made. The silent black and white ones up to the one that's, ones that are coming out in theater this month. Because I could die any day. And I could panic. Or I could remember that everything is impermanent. And really enjoy the opportunities that I have to engage in this hobby. Every late August to September to October when I watch these movies. Because one day I won't be able to. Maybe because I'm not here. Maybe because my sight will fade, or my hearing will fade, or my interest will change. Maybe I'll get really into romantic comedies instead. And I'll do a, 28 for 28 in February for Valentine's Day. Probably not. But everything's impermanent. So I want to close with some brief lines from one of our daily liturgies. We have several liturgies I mentioned in our Book of Common Meditation, and the one that we normally do for our meditation services and for these virtual liturgies here is Liturgy of the Day C. The first Liturgy of the Day A, in parentheses, has a recitation for the assembly called the Way. And the last three lines of that recitation connect beautifully to these 5 remembrances. Time is fleeting. Do not hold back. Appreciate this precious life. So I hope, as always, that these words and this reflection on those 5 remembrances is helpful. The moment we receive true and trusting, solid and clear like a diamond, infinite light and life embrace and protect us, liberating us completely. Let us take the 4 immeasurable vows. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to liberate them. Delusions are endless. I vow to end them. The ways of compassion and wisdom are boundless. I vow to embody them. The way is unattainable. I vow to attain it. And let us take the precepts for the community of the vow. I allow my true self to manifest in all aspects of life. I take complete responsibility for my own life and all of my actions. I affirm my personal being and acknowledge it as a path to awakening and freedom. I embrace all aspects of my personal being, including my shadow, so that they may be transformed. I affirm an attitude of openness to my true self, even in the midst of suffering. So what I would like to do is spend a brief time chanting the Nembutsu, Namu Amida Butsu. And as we do, I would invite you to offer incense at your home altar or centering space and chant along. And once we finish our chanting, will strike a bell, and we'll spend a few moments in silent abiding and meditation and reflection. And then we'll close. So to acknowledge that when we practice with everyone who has practiced the Dharma through the history of time, everyone who is practicing now, and everyone who will, even after we're gone. Let us recite the Bodhisattva's Gatha. We dedicate this practice to the welfare of all beings throughout space and time. May it always be so. So I hope that you have found this liturgy and Dharma talk helpful. And just a reminder that we have a in-person meditation session in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, if you're in the area, on Monday evenings at 6:30. So I would invite you to check that out. And then, of course, join us virtually as well. And if you would like to learn more about us or would love to chat with someone, acknowledging that these remembrances and this the realization of impermanence is not always an easy one. Sometimes it's helpful to talk to someone. You can find out more about us at AskSenseiTony.com or DragonflySangha.com. Sangha is SANGHA.com. But as always, I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and thank you.